agreement with Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation. Okay, items to be removed.
I'd like to remove A1.
I would like to remove A1B. Else from the council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion regarding the rest of the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Mrs. Shabbat.
Just minor corrections on the first page where it says Town Administrator, change it from Mr. Gonzalo to Mr. Wojcik. And
I know. I wrote that too.
And on page 9 of 12, there's a note most of the way down the page where it says adopted resolution attached at end of minutes for the RIDEM. That was not attached at the end, if that could be added to the end of the document. I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and second on CA1A. All those in favor? Okay. A motion on CA1B. I will not vote since I was not here.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain. Okay, open public forum for announcements, comments, and questions. Okay, Mr. Odell.
Good evening. My name's Jim Odell. I'm on Warren Avenue in Tiverton. I have several things to discuss. The first of which, I just wanted to give my kudos and congratulations to the town on a very nice Celebrate Tiverton celebration. The attendance was up significantly at all events. Unfortunately, I was only able to attend a couple. Turnout and participation was excellent, and I'd like to give my congratulations to the people that organized it for a job well done, and look forward to its continued growth in years to come. The second thing I'd like to go into is our planner. I will be very brief, but I think it behooves the council that I state what I have to state. Being said, I'll just read a very small
we
written
have an
statement.
agenda item on that.
That's an agenda item, so you
Yes,
can't-
but there is no public participation where it's located on the agenda, and so I think it's...
I will not entertain that at this time. It is on the agenda. You cannot speak on it.
Will there be discussion on it during that agenda item?
No.
Well, that's why I feel you need to hear what I have to say, because it's to
I'm sorry,
protect
Mr.
you as
Odell.
well as the town.
Mr. Odell, I'm sorry, I will not allow it.
Mr. Odell, is it a reiteration of what was said last
No,
week?
it's new information. We found 2 Rhode Island general laws that the way you're going about this, you're in violation of, in which the town council can be held personally liable without
Then, Mr.
indemnification
Odell-
from the town.
Mr. Odell, then put it on the next council's agenda.
You're doing it this evening.
Well, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, then I'll let it be known that I am gonna file a charter complaint in the morning. It's already been made out. I have it with me. Furthermore, there will be state court action within the next 72 hours taken by our attorney to stop it because it's totally illegal. I'll leave it at that.
I would like to hear why this is totally illegal.
Good.
I will,
Does anybody agree with me?
I will have to have a motion
I
from the
agree.
council.
Go ahead, Mr. Odell.
Thank you very much. The manner in which you're going about this violates Tiverton's Home Rule Charter. This is old information that you already have at Section 407, 503, 703, and it touches on 1205. Further, it is in direct violation of our state constitution at Article 13, Section 8. If this isn't enough by itself, then you're also violating Rhode Island General Laws, Title 42 at Chapter 45.9, Section 45.911, and 45.919.
And what would those be?
I'm going to read one to you.
Thank you.
45.911, expenditures in excess of appropriations prohibited. No official in a city or town which is subject to the jurisdiction of any overseer, budget committee or commission, receiver, or except, with the exception in the case of an emergency involving health and safety of the people or the people's property declared by the city or town, shall knowingly expend or cause to be expended in any fiscal year any sum in excess of that appropriation. B, an official who intentionally violates this section shall be personally liable to the city or town for any amounts expended in excess of an appropriation, to the extent that a city or town does not recover such amounts from a person or persons to whom such amounts were paid, shall not be indemnified by city or town for such amounts. The Superior Court shall have jurisdiction to adjudicate claims brought. What this means briefly, and this is by attorney consult, you people have to take the money out of your wallet if you do this tonight.
Mr. Tights,
Yes.
was there not a resolution that was passed that the town council could indeed do? We do it all the time.
Well,
We move monies around.
First of all, that, if I'm looking at Title 45, Chap,
45-9.
45-9. 45-9 is all about cities and towns with overseers. And the Budget Commission that is referred to there is when a Budget Committee is established essentially by the Director of Revenue in the state, basically one step before you go into receivership
As
or
they go in East
bankruptcy.
Providence and
That's the
Woonsocket.
Budget Committee they're talking about, not the Tiverton elected Budget Committee. So this whole title, this chapter has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
That's what it was originally set into
Mr.
place
Adele.
for, but it now has jurisdiction over all cities and towns. That is our understanding.
Mr. Odell, I don't agree with you.
That's
We
fine.
have a budget line item that says planner.
And
The
it says
town
$20,000.
The town, but we transfer money from one account to another all the time. So if we are, right, the town would not function unless we did that, okay? So I don't see why this is a violation at all.
In fact,
Yep.
this statute is a good point. If you've got a fiscal overseer and you're in trouble financially, that's when you can't do that sort of thing. If there was a state-appointed budget commission, then you couldn't make the transfers. That's what this statute says, which goes to the point of, we are in good shape, we don't have a budget committee overseeing us from the state, therefore you can make those changes.
I mean,
I invite you to make that argument in court, sir.
I think we may have to, but that's just fine.
We are
because
going to
I'm-
have to.
Mr. Odell,
Yes.
just because you file something does not mean the Attorney General will agree with you.
I've spoken to them also.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
You're not on it.
not listed.
Oh, I'm not, I gotta be listed to go on then?
Yeah.
Oh, can I ask you a silly question then? Has nothing to do with anything?
Okay, Linda Larson.
I'm new at this stuff.
Okay, she's running late. She wanted to discuss Celebrate Tiverton. I will give her the courtesy when she does get here. Okay, we will move on with our agenda. Public hearings and public presentations. Proposed ordinance licensing of shooting gallery. We had discussed at our July 21st meeting the intent of the town council to continue the public hearing to Tuesday, August 12th, 2014, at Tiverton High School auditorium due to expected public interest. We also have documentation from Mr. Randy LeBeau and documentation from the Tiverton Rod and Gun Club, including a letter from Attorney Reagan. I will open the hearing and then entertain a motion to continue it on August 12th, 2014, at 7 p.m. Tiverton High School.
Mr. President, I just have one comment on this. It says documentation from the Rod and Gun Club, but as you know, I was getting emails and a lot of letters in, so you didn't have that. You had the letter from the attorney, but you did not have that. They're all documented and logged in now, just
Okay.
so you'll know.
Thank you.
I move that we continue the public hearing to Tuesday, August 12th at 7 p.m. at the Tiverton High School.
You have a motion?
Second?
Second, discussion?
Before you guys do that, can I say something now
I
before
think
you
you do,
close
because
it?
you just opened a
You
public
opened
hearing.
it, now before you close it.
Okay.
I just got one little issue that I had, okay. I'm Randy LeBeau, 22 Last Street, Tiverton. I had a call from my attorney that said Mr. Tights and Mr. Reagan had got together to discuss the ordinance, and my attorney wasn't invited. He was actually asked not to show up. So I just want to put on record that Mr. Tights and Mr. Reagan were talking about the ordinance. So I don't know if it violates anything or to open, or whatever's going on with it. But I just want to know on the record that my attorney wasn't invited. So that's all I had to say.
Mr. Tights?
Sure. In fact, I was going to let you know, I did meet with Mr. Regan and some officers from the Rod and Gun Club to discuss their concerns with the ordinance. And I would also intend, I'd be happy to meet with Mr. LeBeau and his attorney. I have not yet received anything with your attorney's name on it, so I don't even know who he or she is to contact. But if you would have them contact me, I'd be happy to have a meeting. I will not invite the Rod and Gun Club to that, but I would be happy to meet with you and hear your concerns.
No, I don't have a concern. He called me
Well,
and just said that you guys were having a meeting and he wasn't invited, that's all.
Yeah, but if we
Well,
don't
if
know
he
who the
wants-
attorney is, how can we invite?
I don't know how he is, and even
Keep
if...
it secret for now.
Well, then you can't expect me to meet with him if you keep it secret.
That's okay, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
deal with it next week.
Okay, anything else?
Have
from
him
the
call me.
council?
I will, thank you.
Oh, my God.
And by the way, while we're on the subject, I will say, it was a very, had a very good discussion with it, and I do expect to be presenting some suggested amendments prior to the public hearing on the draft ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, proposed ordinance amendment to Chapter 15, Drinking Water Reservoirs. Public hearing is now open.
We did it the right way.
Should I?
Yes.
Do you want, Mr. President? This ordinance is a follow-up
Why
to
don't I have that?
the many efforts that the town is taking to protect the drinking water reservoirs within the town. One of the things that we discovered last year in our research was that Stafford Pond had been duly approved by the Federal Aviation Administration as a landing area for seaplanes, and apparently there may or may not be seaplanes that have landed from time to time. But we also found out through help from our congressional offices that the FAA has removed that designation. Apparently, there is no further demand for it. They've removed the designation. So consequently, we have presented this ordinance here, which would make it illegal to land or take off in a seaplane other than in an event of an emergency.
Okay, public hearing? People from anyone from the public?
Good evening. Tricia Hilton, Tiverton Conservation Commission. As you know, we've been working for the better part of almost 2 years on Stafford Pond, which includes the recreational use of Stafford Pond. I have a couple of questions about this ordinance, or the commission has a couple of questions. The first being, has the city of Newport, and particularly Julia Forg at the Newport Water Division, been notified of this pending ordinance?
No?
Well, the city of Newport is in the middle of an $80 million capital improvement campaign around their public drinking water. And the Conservation Commission tries hard to maintain a good working relationship with them because of non-quit pond. It's in both of our interests to work together. One of the things about this ordinance is that it includes non-quit pond, which is, to the best of anybody's knowledge, never had a seaplane land on it. And unlike Stafford Pond, non-quit is private property in its entirety. There is no public access whatsoever. The city of Newport owns that water body, lock, stock, and barrel. They own the water, they own the land underneath the water, and they own all the land around the water. So it's purely private property. We would be very concerned about passing an ordinance that includes non-quit pond without including the city of Newport, because it really is their private property. And even though they probably don't want any seaplanes landing there, they may have a concern about our passing an ordinance that affects effectively their private property. So if we were to go forward, we would really like the city of Newport to be notified. The other piece of this, as far as the city of Newport goes, just so you know, because folks often think, well, we've got Nonquit Pond down there and we've got to babysit it. Keep in mind that the city of Newport pays us somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 a year in property taxes for that pond as well. So they are a significant taxpayer in town. The other piece of language in this ordinance that the Conservation Commission is a little bit worried about is the exception for emergencies. In the state of Rhode Island and across the country, both the FAA and the Rhode Island Airport Corporation strictly regulate where you can land any kind of plane. A regular plane, a seaplane, and you simply can't put a plane down anywhere. You can't have your own private airport without having it approved. So the regulations around emergency landings are covered through the FAA and the Rhode Island Airport Corporation. I'm not sure that if we have language in there that says you can land a plane on Stafford Pond if it's an emergency, how we're to determine what an emergency is. I mean, unless you're a pilot, somebody could put a plane down or do a touch and go and say, oh, well, gee, my plane was sputtering, I thought it was an emergency. If we need an ordinance so that the Town of Tiverton Police Department can report a tail number to the FAA or to the Rhode Island Airport Corporation because somebody's landing illegally, then that's a good thing. But opening up a determination about emergencies might put us in a position where, we're as non-pilots and non-education, non-aviation experts trying to determine that somebody had an emergency. We've had reports recently that in the past 2 weeks, there have been a couple of touch and goes done on Stafford Pond, which are clearly illegal according to Rhode Island and federal aviation laws. As I said, we should be reporting their tail numbers, and if the Tiverton PD needs an ordinance to be able to do that, but we are concerned in the commission with this language of in an emergency. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I can follow up on that with two suggestions. If we notify Newport, my suggestion is that we also notify Fall River, because they have an interest. But that I don't think is important. I did have some concern where the proposed ordinance concludes with the following line: case of emergency where no other reasonable alternative exists. I can't imagine a pilot taking off thinking that he's going to have an emergency, and as the emergency will be such that he'll have to land in a body of water. I mean, it's almost inconceivable to me that that would be something that would be done intentionally or deliberately. My suggestion would be, and I think it responds to the suggestion that's raised, case of emergency, comma, where no other reasonable alternative exists that could have been reasonably known by the operator. He's the only one that can make a judgment as to, my God, I got to land in swamp water. It would seem to me that that's where the issue, if a case like this ever comes up, is what was the thinking of the operator, no one else. He's the one that has to make the decision, am I in an emergency situation, and where the heck do I land?
Well, in that case, does it even need to be here? In an emergency, I don't think anyone would object to someone landing there if it meant.
Shall I respond?
Yes.
First of all, Trish, wherever, I guess I'm surprised. This has been out there for 6 weeks. We've actually been talking about this since last year. So I'm kind of surprised. I didn't think of notifying Newport and still don't. There are people who claim that Stafford Pond is privately owned, that they own the bottom of Stafford Pond, and I understand that Nonquit Pond is private property, but I still think in order to be effective as an ordinance, it needs to be effective across the board on both our drinking water reservoirs, whether we own them or privately owned. And as I said, I think they are private. They're privately owned by somebody, whether us or not. We're simply regulating the health, public safety within them. So I cannot conceive of Newport wanting to allow the seaplane landing. So I didn't see any need to notify them on that, and I still don't. As to the emergency, I just thought to leave it in there. I mean, basically, it's only going to happen if someone comes in and is violating it, and they land a couple of times and say, oh, it was an emergency, it was an emergency 3 times or whatever. Yes, we're going to be prosecuting them. It's not the idea of somebody ditching an airplane in the water. This is a seaplane, and reasonable alternative, for example, might well be in the harbor, or outside somewhere along there, if in fact it's a calm day and there aren't waves. If it's a day and there's a big tide running, then maybe it's not a reasonable alternative to land on the ocean water, and they need to land on Stafford Pond, or perhaps one of the other ponds in Fall River that's not a drinking water reservoir, but maybe they don't have enough fuel to get there. I think that's just a case-by-case basis, and it's only going to come up if we're actually prosecuting someone, and we're only going to prosecute someone if it's a problem. If someone lands there once and, rescue's arriving and whatnot, and they're towing, the takeoff's not allowed. So if they land there in an emergency, they're going to be having to haul it up on a trailer or the ramp and take it out some other way. It's not going to fly out of there. And if somebody does fly out of there a couple of times, then we're going to bring action against them.
The only thing I was trying to respond to from Mrs. Hilton was, I think the state of mind that we're looking at is the state of mind of the person who's in panic making an emergency landing.
Well,
I don't think we should be second-guessing somebody who drops a plane in a swamp.
I realize that your expertise in aviation law far exceeds mine.
No,
But I think
no, it
I think it's actually not. I think it's an objective standard. What would the objective observer, looking at the facts facing that pilot, think whether it's an emergency or not?
But
Yeah,
what
if
I'm
it's
saying
a
is that the
non-
alternative that could have, reasonably been known by the operator. It's all well and fine to say you could have gone a little further
we just put
to
a
southward
period-
Tupper, but
Why don't we just put a period after the word emergency?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, because, I mean, basically, if it's a non-seaplane and it lands in Stafford Pond, it has a problem.
Would it,
This is fun, but it's never going to happen, I would hope.
Well, this is designed to, if in fact there is someone out there who's doing it, this is designed to provide some teeth so we can stop it. That's what it's been designed for.
So where are we putting the period?
On
Except in a
section
case of emergency.
15-12, at the end, it will say, except in case of emergency, period. We've already defined emergency landing up there in 1511, so we'll just take off that last phrase there, where no other reasonable alternative exists, and put a
And
period.
as far as notifying Newport and Fall River, I see no issue in that. I think just as a courtesy.
We'll be happy to notify them afterwards if you should decide to pass it. And in fact, we were planning, there is Rhode Island Private Pilots Association, we were going to notify them of it afterwards as well, just as a courtesy.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
And if they have grave
Yes.
concerns, we can
Mrs. Hilton.
address it.
we would strongly urge the council to notify the city of Newport and Fall River, because they do own some overflow rights to Stafford Pond, before we pass this ordinance. As I said, the city of Newport is in the middle of an $80 million capital campaign, and they are necessarily, a little concerned about their drinking water reservoirs. So we, in the spirit of maintaining a good working relationship with them, I think it would be in our best interest to give them an opportunity to comment ahead of time. On the emergency things, one of, both a federal regulation and a Rhode Island regulation, which is why I'm not even sure we need the word, the emergency language at all. I think you could stop with, you're just not supposed to put a seaplane there. If you land a plane, a seaplane or any kind of plane, anywhere other than an approved, state-approved landing strip, private airport, public airport, whatever it is, anytime a plane goes down anywhere that isn't one of those places, you are required to file with the FAA in the state why you've done that. So if there really is an emergency, there's a whole set of procedures and processes that go in place. I mean, we don't need to, I'm not sure that we need to get into the emergency thing, because I think if somebody actually does it in a true emergency, I mean, you're not supposed to land your plane on a highway, but every once in a while you hear of somebody who does it because they have to. So I'm not really sure if we even need to get into the emergency part, maybe we just say you can't put a seaplane in a a drinking water supply and leave it at that. And if there really is an emergency, it's up to the FAA and the Rhode Island Airport Corporation to sort out whether or not it was or it wasn't, and that person should be fined or not. And obviously, their fines are a lot more significant than what we would have. The only concern we had is, as we've said, we've had reports, we haven't seen them, but we've had reports that there have been some touch-and-go practices over at Stafford Pond. And we're a little concerned that by our having language that says, well, if it's an emergency, then, somebody's going to say, well, it says you can if it's an emergency, and I felt like it was an emergency, and now we're in the middle of trying to adjudicate that versus simply reporting their tail numbers to the appropriate authorities and letting them sort it out. And Andy, to your point, we do appreciate this has been around for a while, but keep in mind the Conservation Commission only meets once a month. So, sometimes it takes us a little while between the time something comes out and we have a meeting, and we can in fact discuss it and then be prepared to come back and report to the council. Thank you.
I just have a quick question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyone else from the public? Anyone else from the public? Third and final time, anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing none, council.
I was just going to ask that these touch and go and these landings in Stafford Pond, I presume we don't have any reason to believe that they have filed a landing report or an amendment to their flight plan or any of those sort of things.
Well,
Right.
that wouldn't help. This is no longer a designated landing place.
No, I
so
know, but I'm
They would
saying
have to be
what-
filing an emergency,
Yeah, what I'm
an
saying
accident
is
report.
these people are not only illegally landing, but they're illegally landing and then not
Right.
reporting their landing.
Right. And I'd certainly encourage anybody who's out there on TV land or whatever, if you see it,
Yeah.
try to
Get
grab
that
the
tail number.
binoculars and get the number on the tail of the plane. And after, if we pass this ordinance, call the police dispatch. And, we certainly would intend to notify the FAA as well. We're not going to handle it alone. Our main goal is just to stop it. We're not trying to throw anybody in jail. We just want to stop it to protect the water supply.
Okay.
Anything else from the council?
Did you, Trish, have a?
Yes, the FAA and the Rhode Island Airport Corporation have told us that if we can identify a tail number of anybody landing a seaplane there or any kind of plane there, we simply need to call and report the tail number, and they will open an investigation. They take this kind of illegal landing very seriously. So, they've told us we can do that. If an ordinance helps the Tiverton PD be able to send a cruiser and go and report a tail number, then, that's great. But they're fully willing to take on the problem of people illegally landing planes anywhere.
We just have to get the
We just
tail
have to get a
numbers.
tail number, or a photograph. They said
Yeah.
any sort of, or
Okay.
even a description. I mean, they're willing to.
There aren't that many seaplanes.
There aren't that
Yeah.
many seaplanes, so even if you could describe it, their investigators are willing to follow up, because it's a very serious violation. I mean, you can lose your pilot's license over this in a heartbeat. You are not supposed to put a plane in places where it's not authorized to land.
Yeah,
It's that
okay.
simple.
I have to say that I live in the Stafford Pond, like right in that neighborhood. I haven't heard of any planes landing there, and someone in the neighborhood will say something. And I myself have not seen it, so I'm not quite sure.
We've just had reports from a couple of residents that it's been something they haven't seen in forever, and in the last 2 weeks, they've seen a couple of them, and why that's happening, we don't know.
Probably
But
trying to beat the ordinance.
Well, there is a thought that that's a little bit of this, that this ordinance is coming, and that's a little bit of a kind of, okay, we're going to beat the ordinance, or we'll go ahead and try and stop us kind of attitude. We're not really sure, but we are trying to get evidence. We do have a meeting this Thursday, actually, around Stafford Pond, and hopefully a lot of residents will turn up, and we might be able to get some more information then.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion from council?
I just have a few questions. If airplanes are regulated, airplanes in airports and landing zones are regulated by the FAA and the Rhode Island Airport Corp, then what does this do that they don't already do? And if you say that it gives the authority to the police department to what? Take a tail number and report it to the FAA and the Rhode Island Airport Corp., then I don't see why we need an ordinance to do that. There's no teeth in this, there's no penalties in this.
Yes, there is. This is a violation, any violation of this is a violation of the Code of Ordinance, subject to up to $500 fine, just like anything else in the ordinance. It doesn't have to have a specific. And if I may, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead, John.
It's just that, I just think it's overkill.
Okay, well then, this is to send a message to DEM. I've sat in 2 messages from DEM where staff from the natural resources, the fishing side, said, you even let seaplanes land there. Why should we do it? That was part of their excuse why they would not take any regulatory action on the fishing tournaments, was the seaplanes. And I heard it from the head of the division himself. And it was also set forth in writing by their attorney and raised before the TRO comment with the judge about the town's not doing its part. And seaplanes were thrown at us in all of those elements. So that's what we're really doing it for. It will, in fact, allow prosecution by the town directly in district court if we need to. I hope it doesn't have to go that far, but at least it allows it. And it's part of the big package of stuff to let everyone from DEM to the residents, to the people fishing there, to the 10,000 people who depend on that water supply, know that the town is doing everything it can to protect the water supply.
So in effect, we have to put in an ordinance because the DEM won't talk to the Rhode Island Airport Corp. And say they can't land there.
No, the DEM won't talk to its own fisheries division.
Well, I think we have, I'm sure there are lots of ordinances we have in town which either emulate or copy state or federal statutes. And I think it's just a matter of just saying, in Tiverton, that these are the things that we will or will not do. And I agree with it. I mean, it's just one more thing to let people know that if they're not aware of the state law or the federal law, then at least they know that there is a town law that tells them they can't land a seaplane there.
Mr. President,
Yes, Chief.
I have been in touch with the folks at the airport regarding the landing of seaplanes. The last time anyone was authorized to land a plane and had the qualifications and the insurance was 2009. They have got in touch with Mr. Ramatowski about that and to inform him that no planes are allowed to be in that area, so DEM should be well aware of that.
They're not.
All right, okay, Mike.
Thank you, Chief. Anything else from the council?
And I have to agree with Ms. Hilton that then we should remove the emergency landing from this and just say it's prohibited.
Anything else? Is that a motion? Mrs. Chabot?
I make that as a motion.
Okay, to remove, except in case of emergency?
Anything to do with emergency landing. So, section 1511B, and remove section, the except in emergency case in section 15-12.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's removed. Okay, now I will entertain a motion regarding the ordinance as amended.
Okay, I move that we approve the ordinance as amended for Chapter 15, drinking water reservoirs. That's it. And also request that we send notice to Newport, City of Newport and the City of Fall River.
I have to pass it.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Not
Any
right now.
discussion?
Oh. Well, it doesn't matter to me.
Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Linda's here, so.
Okay, I will reopen, first I'll close the public hearings, and I will reopen our comments. Linda Lawson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize to you and the council and everyone in attendance for my tardiness. I tried my best to get here. I just wanted to take a moment of your time to talk a little bit about Celebrate Tiverton, the townwide celebration that we just all made it through, and thank our residents in attendance. We had a wonderful celebration. It was very well attended. We had fantastic weather, which is always a plus, and I wanted to thank the town council for your support, and our town clerk, our rec committee, Tiverton Four Corners for hosting the kickoff, Mrs. Pelletier, who's always up here for decorating our trailer with our wonderful music by Christopher James, of course, the Tiverton Police Department and Chief Blakely and his staff for keeping us all safe. The parade was very much a big hit. It was very well attended. We probably had a third more participants this year. The streets were lined in shady pockets very heavily and along the way. So it's growing every year. We'd like to thank Sandy Woods and Russ Smith for hosting the evening. We'd love to see more folks at the children's storytelling and the barbecue, but the dance, we couldn't get any more in the room up there at Sandy Woods, and stargazing was a big hit as well. The Tiverton High School and Tiverton Athletics, Bob Murray and his football players for the runners. We had about 65 runners this year, so that grew as well. And as we packed up after the road race on Sunday and got in the car and drove away, the skies opened. So it was kind of a nice way to cool everyone down and send everyone home. If you've read in the paper, we had a wonderful bonfire. Unfortunately, we had to go to Plan B, which we really didn't have Plan B. Our pallets kind of got stuck on a truck in Boston. So I just really want to extend my appreciation and gratitude. We were teetering on the edge of the beach all day. It was not a good sight. Our town administrator, Matt Wojcik, coming down to check on us, making sure that we were all, didn't have our heads underwater, and helped us with the pallets in his white dress shirt before he went off to dinner. Steve Bellucci and the DPW guys came to our rescue, so we thank them. We have John Manchester, John Hughes, Bill Sanford. When things happen like this in a community and you need a call for action, who do you call first? Mrs. Black over here. She, if there's something that's going to be done, and something that's, needs to be brought to the town-wide's attention, so we kind of put the call out, but in a small community like this, we're thankful for our community partners to come to our rescue. And I cannot speak enough of Captain Reimels, who was the acting chief at the time in the Tiverton Fire Department. Chief Lloyd is probably back there saying, "Thank God I was on vacation this week." He was so concerned about having a bonfire for our community and also the safety of our community, because I think at that point we were willing to burn couches if need be. So he kept us all in order, but he went above and beyond. He really did, him and the Tiverton Fire Department, to make sure that this happened. So I apologize if I forgot anyone along the way, but I certainly want to say thank you to all, and thank you to our community. And July 24th through the 26th of 2015, we will be back again, hopefully.
And again, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Town Council sitting as a Board of Licensing. Cartwheels LLC, 2490 Main Road, requests approval of victualling licenses subject to meeting all legal requirements. Is anyone here from Cartwheels? Please.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, state your name.
My name is Tom Trayman.
Okay, all right, Mr. Chairman. You want to tell us a little bit about Cartwheels and...
Well, I have 6 kids. My wife spends a lot of time cooking. I thought it'd be a lot easier if we opened a little restaurant that made dinners for us and anybody else that felt like coming to buy some good food. So we're going to have a variety of salads, some pre-made dinners that are freshly made every day, things that you might make at home, but you might not want to mess up your kitchen and take a long time cleaning dishes afterwards. So that's the plan.
Great. Okay, for those who aren't familiar with street numbers, if you could tell us roughly where it's located?
It's located adjacent to Helger's Ice Cream on Main Road.
Okay.
So between Helga's and the package store?
Actually, the package store is on the opposite end of that, so we're on the far end. I guess that would be the north side of that building.
Very good.
Great. Okay. Okay, any questions from the council? Okay. Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public? Third and final time, anyone from the public? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the victualling license for Cot Wheels, 2490 Main Road, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Passes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much.
Good luck.
Good luck. Appointments and resignations. Town Administrator, request approval, appointment of Town Planner, recommendation, Kate Michaud.
Mr. President, there's no lack or shortage, I guess, however many redundant terms I want to use. There's certainly no shortage of opinions in this town on this matter. And I've been trying to think of an analogy to use, to try to put people into my shoes for a second. There's a TV program on the Food Channel where the contestants are handed a basket full of surprise ingredients and said to open it up and go ahead and make yourself a meal. And if they don't do a good job, they get chopped. The planner appointment is something that was debated at great length, and it is a result of many experiences in this town that long predate my involvement as your town administrator. So when I arrived, I opened up my box of surprise ingredients, and there's a lot of things in there. There's feelings both good and bad about prior occupants of this office, about tension in the relationship between the planning department and planning board. There's points of views about the budgetary constraints of the town and whether or not this is a wise investment versus whether or not this investment will allow the town to grow its tax base or help the town to grow its tax base so that it can resolve its budget constraints. And throughout all of these different points of opinion and different stakes that are put in the ground by different bodies of elected officials, the only way to survive this process is to focus on the fundamentals and take the clear guidance that you've gotten all along. I think the council has been very clear in its instructions to the administrator, to me, to hire this person, because it is the will of the council to have this set of skills available to it at this point in the development of the town. So I've stuck to two clear principles: to stick to that, and then second of all, to do the best possible job I know how, and to provide as much guidance as possible to the entire process so you can be proud of the result. So I made two recommendations along the way. One was to have an ordinance that very formalized, in a very formal way, created this position, this department, and set out its responsibilities and its duties and the method for evaluating its performance. Even if that ordinance doesn't exist, though, there's still the mechanism of the contract where one can accomplish that. And the second important principle was to establish a process for selecting this person who would fill this role that everybody could defend. So not going off on my own, forming my own opinion. Because frankly, I have a lot of exposure in this field. I know a lot of people who practice in this field from my own experience as an economic development director, and even before that, from my involvement in the governor's office, where we appointed the statewide planning commission, and I often reviewed the resumes of some of the best planners in the state, know where they stand, what their qualifications are, and their track history. I will say, as we went through this process, we knew that Kate would apply for this position. And it was almost unfair in the sense that the bar would be higher for the local candidate because you don't want to create this impression that the fix is in. Rather than escape that, I'll simply name it for what it is. And so in my personal opinion, the bar was very high. And I attended the initial interviews for the first 7 people who applied for this position. I will say that, in my opinion, all 7 were qualified to do this job in any given city or town in the state of Rhode Island. But emerging from that process, there were 4 very strong candidates. 2 of them especially stood out and came through the finals along with the other 2. Knowing that that would not be enough process, I established a written portion of this interview process. Candidates had to respond to 2 questions. First of all, they had to legitimize the position of town planner. You know, they had to know what they were getting themselves into, what they were going to be tackling, and be able to defend themselves. And secondly, I wanted them to shine. So I gave them the opportunity to create a photo montage of the town of Tiverton. They needed to find 5 photos that captured the spirit and the essence of the town, and then summarize that into an elevator speech about why this is such a great place to live and work. Then there was a series of final interviews. All 4 finalists were brought in. I asked the planning board for a designee. That was Mr. Stu Hardy. And I asked the EDC for a designee, and Scott Humphrey decided to do that himself. And the 3 of us interviewed each finalist for an hour after reviewing all their written results. Throughout this entire process, from the initial interviews right through the written portion, right through the final oral interview, there was a consistent pattern of Ms. Michaud outperforming the other candidates. Knowing the town so well, knowing what the issues were, knowing how to navigate this complex system of Conservation Commission, Open Space Commission, Zoning Board, Planning Board, with lots of different opinions about the future of the town, and this Town Council and Budget Committee. It was only after that it was a long process, took over a month, that long process of demonstrating this level of, first of all, passion for the job, passion for the town, and professional credentials, that I've made this recommendation to you this evening. You have in your packet, because the candidates are named, not in your packet, you were sent in for your information background, which we sometimes do with resumes, and so you can see some of the feedback that I've gotten from the 2 colleagues that I was in the interview process with. But the outcome of that was unanimous in recommending Ms. Michaud to you for town planner. There's a lot more work to be done. I will also not hide the fact that it is important to consider this appointment on the merits, because the dynamics of finding a way to fund this position within the constraints of the existing budget are different with this recommendation than they would be for anyone else. So in order to make budget transfers and a final contract, really I needed the guidance of the council on who you wanted to pick for this position. Because if I go with any of the other 3 candidates, we'll have significantly more work to do because of the way the dynamics of this may work out. You'll also notice in executive session, I will have to have a conversation with you regarding our approach to the collective bargaining unit that represents one of the positions in that department. Again, I'll need your guidance to figure out how we're going to make the budget work. All I can pledge to the citizens of this town is that, I made my recommendation clear at the last council meeting. I do believe the town needs a planner. But my entire background, my entire career is based on fiscal responsibility conservatism. If I can knock down a budget limit and beat that, I think of all of these budgets as targets, and I want to be under. If I can get under, that's where I want to be. So I understand fully that dynamic is to get the best, the highest level of service for the most affordable price. And that is what I'm going to take into this contract negotiation, is how I'm going to approach the subject of budget transfers, and I will do that in the next meeting.
Okay, anything from the council?
Go ahead, Brett.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm trying to recall in the time that I've been here, I'm having a hard time putting it together, but I don't think we've hired a department head, thank you. That's right? Right. That's accurate. But we have hired other individuals, and so what mechanically does this look like, Andy, or or Matt? I'm sorry?
We have to approve the...
We have to approve the appointment and then ratify the contract? Is that how it works?
Yes,
Which
that's right.
ordinarily, we just ratify a contract if it's a...
That's correct.
okay.
You have to approve the appointment, and if you reject the appointment, you have to provide the administrator with the reason why you're rejecting it. I'm looking for the exact language
Yep.
here, but...
I know I read it.
Yeah, I know I've read it too, but
I read it at home today.
Yeah, I did too.
Well, we can continue with that. You can find that and then just get
yeah,
back to me.
but that's essentially what it is. You can't choose, but you can reject the choice that's been provided to you.
Okay.
Matt, I don't
That's
know
all
if-
I have.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but as far as the budget item is 20,000, so you would be needing is it too soon to ask you that? The money
Because
that
we're in the
you're
midst
getting?
of negotiation.
Yeah, it might be, but it's not all that mysterious. There are some
Right.
benchmarks that we all understand. We understand what this individual's total annual compensation looks like now,
Right.
right? That's one benchmark. We know what
Numerous
the
jobs
average,
used.
the average compensation for this role would be in other towns of this size across the state. Those would be the defining metrics that we use as we go through negotiation. But in terms of the overall budget picture, I anticipate ending up with no net change to where we are at the bottom line today.
Correct. Because the rumor out there in several newspaper articles is saying that this will cost us over $100,000, and that is just simply not true, is that?
I think it's fair to say, I mean, if you look
In
at...
addition, it made it sound like...
Yeah, there would be no addition. If there were an addition, I wouldn't recommend going forward.
Okay, anything else from council?
What do you mean, there's no addition? Can you explain the numbers?
This is where I come into the point that you're having an existing employee apply for the position and be nominated for it is a different dynamic than having three people from outside. Given the agreement that you have with the union that allows this situation to exist now, once a planner is appointed, if it were someone other than Ms. Michaud, Ms. Michaud would revert to the planning clerk position, and that position would continue to have to be funded because you have an employee with a binding contract sitting in that role. So if you put a planner on top of that, you're funding that entire salary, plus additional benefits if they're elected by that person. But right now, Ms. Michaud is a covered life. Her family is a family of beneficiaries of our existing benefit program, and her salary already exists in various pockets through the administrative officer and planning clerk and planner. So what I'm proposing to do is put some of those pieces back together to get her to a very similar situation, perhaps slightly better than where she is now. But some other items, as a non-union employee, she would no longer be eligible for longevity, for instance. So there's a longevity line in that department that would go away.
So it's...
Some of this is contingent, of course, upon the union's approach to that position, and we'll talk about that in executive session.
Yes, Mr. Tights.
Yeah, if I could just respond about, it's actually for ratification of the appointment, you do not have to give an answer. It's just subject to your approval. It's the contract, if you reject the contract, that
Right.
you have to provide the explanation.
Say that first part again.
You can reject the appointment without an explanation. It's just
But we
subject to your
still
approval.
have to make an approval.
You still have to approve it, but if
Okay,
you
okay.
deny it, you don't have to give a reason.
Okay, I see.
But once
If-
the contract is out
If
there,
you-
we
if
deny it,
you
we have to
decide
sign
not
it.
to ratify.
So if you
the
decide not to ratify the contract, you have to give the reasons what
Okay.
you find you're objectionable in the contract.
Anything else from the council?
Yes, I just have a couple of comments to make. And Mr. Wojcik actually alluded to it a little while ago, is, I guess, the public relation aspect of this appointment. You alluded to this. It looks like, small-town politics basically at play. I hate to say that, but that's how it appears. And it basically appeared that way to me. And I have nothing against Kate, I have nothing against you. I'm sure you've done a great job here. But I think, my personal opinion, and from my personal experience, that if you were interested in being a planner, you would actually be better placed in actually another community. And why I say that is she worked under the last planner, is that correct? I don't know the history, sorry. Okay. So what I'm alluding to is that there's already a dark cloud over that position. And unfortunately, she was under that dark cloud once already. And for her to emerge from that will be very, very difficult for her to get past. And coming from some personal experience with this type of thing, it's almost impossible to get from underneath that dark cloud. And I would rather see her be more successful in another community where she has a fresh start than to be actually underneath that dark cloud, which she was unfortunately underneath at one time, to continue here.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Root, but being here as long as I have been on the council and going through that entire situation, I have to say that Ms. Michaud did not sit underneath that dark cloud. She continued to be a bright ray of sunshine through that entire process and did her job exemplary. So to paint her with that same brush or whatever feelings people had about the previous planner, to me is very unfair. Again, because she did not allow herself to fall under that, she did her job, she did what she was supposed to do, and continues to do so. So I don't see that. It's a small town, people are going to have opinions, here, there, and everywhere. I personally think that she is the best candidate. I agree with our town administrator, and I will support her recommendation for her appointment.
Feel that she will have a problem in this position, then I think it's up to her personally on whether or not she feels that way. Also, my 2 years here, I feel that Kate has done an unbelievable job. She's picked up the pieces, she's done above and beyond what we really expected of her, and she's just continued on. And I totally support this position, this appointment.
I would just add that I wouldn't characterize the tenure of Chris Spencer here as the town planner as so much doom and gloom. I certainly agree that there was an element of contention and disagreement between parties, but I don't think it was nearly as bad as to say that there was a dark cloud hanging over everything. I did live through the tail end of it. I think when things got perhaps their worst, and Ed was here as well, and Jay, and Joan. But I think, without speaking to any individual participation, I think that that certainly has tainted a lot of people's impression of the process and of the position. And I think that's unfortunate.
That's what I was alluding. That's basically what I'm alluding to.
Yeah. And it's sort of a double-edged sword as someone who is in the political eye. You're sensitive to what the impression of the public is, and you're also sensitive to what is happening on the ground. And I usually err on the side of taking care of the business of the town and what's going on versus the sort of theater of the public opinion, which is often a lot more interesting, quite frankly. But that's all I'll say is that I wouldn't characterize those 6 years as as a dark cloud or anything similar to it. I just think there were some conflicting opinions and conflicting personalities, and ultimately That's the long and the short of it. Anyway.
Anyone else from the council?
Just want to just make some brief comments to Mr. Wojcik on this particular one. Certainly, you're in a hard position because as you stated, it was the will of the council. Certainly, it was the will of some of the council, not all of the council, for you to proceed with a full-time planner. The Budget Committee voted for a part-time and/or consultant to a consultant planner for a total of $20,000. And this budget that was presented to the people of this town was voted with that $20,000 in mind. As I mentioned at the last meeting where we discussed a ordinance for this particular position, I firmly believe that an AICP certification is required for this. And I think it would behoove us, based upon the experience we had with the last town planner, when that did not occur, even though it was in his contract to become certified, he did not complete that process and was not certified. And that could have created part of that dark cloud that has been over this position. And I would say it would be better to start with a fresh page, fresh start with a individual who has that required CICP certification. Just on a point of order for Mr. Tights, point of information rather, as far as the charter goes, under section 407, 6, as far as the power of the town council, it says to create, change, and abolish town offices, departments, and committees not established by this charter or by the Constitution of the laws of the state. And I'm assuming that's where the town council is seeing that they have the authority to establish a new office as the position of planner. And then it continues on saying, any office, department, or committee so established shall conform to the provisions of this charter. Now, my recollection is when we do establish a new committee, we have a resolution to do that. So there is a formal document to establish something, such as a committee. Is there anything required in order to do this, such as a resolution to establish this position?
No.
Can I say
Position
something? This
exists.
position exists. It's never been taken away from the budget. It's always been a
not creating
budget
a new
line
position.
item. It is in
It's a
town.
position that exists.
Someone held the position. And somebody is acting as an interim planner. This is not a new position. This is a budgeted item.
So that I take that from a legal standpoint that no resolution is required.
Mr. President, should I
Yes.
respond? Yes. I don't believe so. We have, I think the committee, the commissions and so forth was a good example. We've had a lot of commissions that have existed for a long time, and we haven't always been able to find a particular written document that set them forward, and so we have had resolutions establishing and reestablishing, but that didn't change their legal existence beforehand. It certainly makes things neater, which is why I supported the town administrator's proposal for an ordinance the last time, simply to neaten things up. It is not a legal requirement.
Anything else from the council?
Mr. President, I'll be very brief. I want to make it clear that it's always been my position that we have a position for a town planner. And I say that with a lot of due respect for the Budget Committee, which, through its representatives, have made some arguments to the contrary. I believe that the town administrator, the EDC, and the planning board, and the town council are all in a better position to know whether or not we need a planning board, a planner, or don't need a planner. We're in a better position than the Budget Committee. I think it's also important in terms of addressing any issue of small-town politics. The recommendation that we're looking at tonight is a recommendation that was made by the town administrator. I certainly hope I haven't said anything or done anything that in any way would influence the town administrator in making a decision as to who the town planner should be. But also, we had representatives of the EDC, and we had a representative from the planning board sitting in on those interviews. It's my understanding that they also came to the conclusion that this was the appropriate candidate to be recommended. For all of those reasons, and the support that she apparently, Ms. Michaud apparently has on the town council already, I don't see it as a matter of small-town politics. I think essentially with a lot of good candidates, we've selected the candidate that's most qualified, particularly considering that this is the type of position I would think does have a learning curve. I don't know where the other candidates came from, but I think there's going to be a great advantage in having a town planner who already has experience with that very subject in this town and lives in this town and knows the issues in this town. That's my comments.
Thank you. And again, I will state my support. I think Mr. Wojcik, I'm sure, looked at all the candidates, and from the short time that he's been here, I get a feeling that if he disagreed, he would have told us so. But I think that Ms. Michaud is the right candidate. She has shown her dedication to this town, and I'm sure that will continue. One of the things that we had discussed prior to this was making sure that the certification was achieved in a set amount of time, and that is important. And I will only speak for myself. Everything that I have done or have tried to do, I always do because I feel it's in the best interest of the town of Tiverton. Not for my own personal benefit or whatever, but that it benefits the entire town. And there are a lot of things that happen that this council votes for or votes against that I think most of us do it because we're doing what we feel is in the best interest of the entire town. Not some small group, not some individual, not some small party, but what is in the best interest of the entire town of Tiverton. And Tiverton is growing whether we like it or not. We need a planner. It is something that in the 6 years that I've sat on this council that I have been for, and I firmly believe that Mr. Wojcik's recommendation and the recommendation of others is the correct one, and I wholeheartedly support Ms. Michaud, and at this time I will entertain a motion.
One last thing I'd just like to say is, in our charter, we have departments and agencies, and planning department isn't in there, so should we possibly think about further discussion, maybe adding this to the charter?
Planning department.
Just adding the planning department as a charter resolution?
It could. I mean, we have other...
Because I've been an advocate of the planner myself.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think maybe the next time we review the charter.
yeah, the next charter review, yeah.
I'd also like to say the Personnel Board was also involved in the early process here, so Kate's name also came down from the early process also.
Anything else from the council? Again, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we appoint Ms. Kate Michaud as our town planner per the recommendation of... That we approve the appointment of Kate Michaud as town planner per the recommendation of the town administrator, subject to the procedures typically used for the appointment of department heads to be followed by Mr. Wojcik, and authorizing Mr. Wojcik to negotiate an appropriate employment contract with Ms. Michaud that would have to be approved by the council.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it is 4-2. Thank you, Mr. Wojcik. Thank you, Ms. Michaud. Okay, new business. Council Shabbat, Comprehensive Community Plan, CPAC update.
Just wanted to give a quick update on the community plan update process. At the last meeting of the CPAC, there was a timeline discussed and documented by Kate. This is the important dates that are associated with it. July 24th was the first pass of the updated elements to each CPAC group for drafting. On August 29th is the deadline for submission of the completed draft elements for distribution to the full CPAC committee. September 4th, the CPAC meeting to report on and discuss the draft elements and plan for the workshop. That's a full CPAC meeting of all the members. September 18th is a workshop session with the planning board and the town council to review the compiled draft documents. And October 20th is the advertised public hearing for town council and planning board for approval. That's the recommended date of October 20th. This is a very aggressive schedule, and the purpose of this aggressive schedule is to get it completed and approved by this council before the next council is elected. That's my update.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Shabbat. Yes.
Does that mean that the council's in agreement with the September
18th.
18th and October 20th dates?
At this point in time, unless there is any difference from the council, I have no issues with the dates.
Might as well check while I'm here.
You're going to want solicitor presence there at those meetings?
Why, do you know a good one?
Nope. But I do, I am not available for one of them, although I can have someone else in the office. The September 18th one should be okay, I think, and October 20th, those the other. The October 20th, I think, was the one that was, well, that's a Monday. I can make the Monday, October 20th. I might need to send someone to the September meeting.
I am not here September 18th. I'll be out of state, but that's,
Yeah, I may not be here September 18th either, but as long as, well, you have a quorum.
Is there a big party on the 18th that I would be
Yeah,
invited
well-
to?
I'm going to Pittsburgh to see a Pirates game. I don't know why, but I am.
I'm actually in Philadelphia.
We should
Well, it's a workshop, so we'll take
You'll
it.
be all right,
That's-
yeah.
I mean-
I mean, I'll try if I'm not.
Yeah, okay. So presently, those dates seem okay. And you have time, obviously, to get the advertisement out for the 20th,
I'm sure Kate will be here.
right? Because you'll need all the pertinent
Right.
information to advertise, yeah.
No, for the public, right, for the workshop. For the public hearing, we need the full 21 days, like any other ordinance.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I'm sure Kate knows anyway.
Thanks, Mrs. Shabbat. Okay, Town Administrator, residential parking.
Mr. President, I expect the police chief will have more detailed comments than I, but I'll preface this with, going back in your memory files, you may recall that much of the neighborhood between Town Hall and Grinnell's Beach has been signed for residential parking only
Yep.
during the busy season. It really has been some time now since that ordinance was very actively enforced. We've got two issues. One is we're really trying to get a handle on use, occasional abuse of Grinnell's Beach, and some of that has filtered through various policies the council's already chosen to increase beach fees. We're closing the gate at certain times of the day. We're being very careful in our monitoring of the asset and making sure that things are cleaned up, et cetera, et cetera. One of the ripples on the pond that has come away from this is that at the present time, our weekend beach parking fee is more or less the same dollar amount, very similar dollar amount to the violation of non-residential parking in this neighborhood. It comes to a head next year when it is anticipated that the reconstruction of the Stone Bridge abutment will be taking place and there'll be significant loss of parking spaces in the Grinnell's Beach area, which would only be complicated further if we decide to pursue the solution to Seaside Gas more or less at the same time, which would make sense for other reasons. So we're anticipating, and then if Red Dory opens up on time, there'll be even more pressure on parking. So the chief has rightfully pointed out that we're going to see a lot more parking pressure in this part of town, and he has his recommendations to make this evening.
Chief.
It is early now, but it's preemptive strike, basically, just to get ahead of this thing for next year, rather than waiting till April or May, with the calendar being clogged or backlogged. We'd like to move ahead to establish some fees for the area. I think it's, I think the past ordinance was $20 for the residential violation of residential parking, where parking fines are $25, so it would be cheaper for them just to park up the street. And actually, if we could get some residential stickers and decide what the council wants to do, something that would be permanently affixed with the registration rather than being transferred from car to car. We look at some of these things like that to get out early next spring to alleviate a situation down there when the parking for the beach becomes in demand.
Chief, are you looking like something like a sticker like they do in Back Bay in Boston or something
Pretty
like
much
that?
so, yes. I'd like to have something not transferable just to take off one car. Another. Some of the residents have called, wanted to have guest passes. I'm actually against that. If you have a guest over your house, pull your car in the street with the residence pack and let them pull their car into the driveway. That's just a thought, initial thought anyhow. But I would think if that's what they want, the signs are there, they're legible, they're faded. It's been a while since it's been imposed, and that the one thing that the ordinance does allow is to tow the cars. I hesitate to do something like that. It just seems to be over the top. But tickets are, I could see that. And I would anticipate also some of the businesses would get on board when we start filling up some of the local businesses rather than the area. They'd be contacting the police as well. So. But I would work with Mr. Tights and Mr. Wojcik to establish some type of a sticker to present to the council for the spring.
And, Mr. Chairman, we're just looking for the council's general direction at this point, that you want to go in that way, and we might try to have, get proposed amendments. Some of the existing ordinance things do need to be fixed as indicated. And normally, we would get you the actual draft ordinance before advertising, but if you would consent, we would probably at this point have a draft and get that first ad going, so we didn't have that whole 6 weeks waiting for the 20-day, one-day period on the ordinance.
I have no issue with that. Any discussion regarding whether it's a sticker or a placard or?
One question I have is, what are the ticket fees if you park, say, on Main Road in front of the beach when a no park?
$25.
So it's $25.
Unless it's fire hydrant, 50. Too close to the corner, that's around $25. Yet up on the residential area is 20 by the current ordinance.
Is there any consideration being made to the area of Main Road between, I don't know, Lawton Avenue and Grinnell's Beach? I mean, I know a lot of people park in front of the Doughboy in that large breakdown area, but that's a no parking zone.
I really haven't thought about that because I don't know what the construction is going to consist of and where that
Okay.
parking lot itself is going to end up.
All right. That's something we might, on a different avenue, kind of try and...
Anything else from the council?
So right now, Chief, you have information from the residents. They go to the police station, they give you their information and that they're residents, and you store that information?
No, right now, the ordinance is in place. It has not been enforced since 2007 at all. But now this, with the revitalization and the proposed fee increases, it's been resurrected, if you will.
So you can still go through the issuing the residential parking permit, but follow it up with a sticker as well?
That would be for the council's, they'd
Stickers are
like to go
good.
with.
Stickers are good. They make it easy to recognize
Right.
whether it's a violation or not.
Correct.
I would just keep in mind, I don't know what the tenure is down there, but how it comes to mind that there may be second homes or rental properties that we might want to consider carving out because I can understand how potentially a transferable placard or sticker might be important to someone who maybe rents their house for the summer and then goes, or something like that.
It could be,
Maybe
it could
it's
be
a-
a residential, a summer home that would,
Yeah.
possibly.
You know,
I
so-
hadn't thought of that actually, but we're having parking problems down there now with the
Yeah.
full-time residents as
Yeah.
well.
Well,
It
just
is-
something to keep in mind. You know.
Yes.
All right, then I would make a suggestion that some of the issues that have been brought up, we'll take the lead on that with Chief Blakey and see what the best, because I'm sure there are other
We'll check with
towns that have the same type of issues, and again, especially with summer homes too.
Correct.
You know, whereas the year-round resident probably has one car, summer there's probably going to be two or three.
Could be.
You know, and the driveway maybe only hold two, so what do you do with a third car? You know, so, you know, there are a lot of issues like that.
Right.
So, so if you could look into all those types of things, and I would assume we want that back as quickly as possible.
No, we're doing this early on before anything actually gets going, so we'll be in place for next summer and rather than wait for that 6 weeks posting,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bids and requests for proposals. Don't go too far, chief. We need a motion on the authorization for the town administrator to prepare documents and, no, excuse me, ordinance. It's just distribution. We're not going to schedule a public, possibly.
No, I think you would just, for item 2, the parking, just authorize the clerk to schedule a public hearing. And when we have the
Second.
revisions.
Motion. Okay, do you need a date certain?
No,
No.
just to,
Okay.
that's it, to authorize
We have a
her to-
motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye, motion carries. Okay.
Now number 3.
Now 3, town administrator, authorization of town administrator to prepare documents and seek financing of septic system repairs through the Community Septic System Loan Program.
Mr. President, I'm going to allow the wastewater district to explain all the details once again, but just by way of preface, this program provides low-interest loans to assist people in coping with the fact that they have a cesspool that may be out of compliance on their property. And when I've been present at wastewater district meetings prior to this evening, we've had a number of cases where applicants were appearing. And these are young families, sometimes elders, but anyone who would struggle with this particular regulation and the financial constraints that it creates. I'll allow Mr. Kendricks and Mr. Linkhart to explain how this will work with the new district in place, but this is a series of documents that I would need your authorization to sign so that we can enter into the formal arrangement for the financing.
Okay.
Yes. For the last several years, the town has entered into an agreement with Rhode Island Clean Water Financing to be part of this program. It's $300,000 authorization for loans for people with failing systems. They can borrow up to $25,000. I think the interest rate is 2%, and for up to 10 years. So Clean Water Financing administers it, and basically the town guarantees the loan. But Clean Water Financing basically takes care of all the paperwork, the application, et cetera. And we currently have people that are in queue. We don't have any money right now to authorize, but it's a great program, and it's for people throughout Tiverton that have problems with their systems.
Anything from the council?
I'm sorry?
Mr. President, do we ever get a report on this, on how many people are
I
actually
was
using
going to ask
it, or-
how many people have we?
We get an average of about 16 people per $300,000 allocation. This past one was 16 people.
Okay, and we document that and we keep records on how
Yeah.
long?
Yeah, we have the records, and Clean Water Financing has the records, so we can submit that, get you that information as to how many people to date.
Yeah, that would be good to have for the
Okay.
council. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Tights.
No, I
Oh.
didn't know if you had a question. I mean, obviously, this is something we've done several
Yeah,
times
I
before,
remember this every year when it comes up.
and we haven't had any problems to date.
Okay, anything from the council? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we authorize the town administrator to prepare and submit the documents and seek financing for a septic system repairs through the Community Septic System Loan Program as more fully described in the attachment G3 to the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bids, requests, and proposals. Town Administrator and Chief Blakey. Request awarded bid of 2 all-wheel drive police package vehicles to Imperial Dodge Imperial Municipal Partners, Inc., 154 East Main Street, Milford, Mass., for a total price of $52,540, including extended warranty.
Mr. President, all I will say before the chief has his piece is that I want to compliment the chief for understanding that the differentiator in this bid process would be the warranties, and he did a very fine job of drawing down the details with these dealers to get the best deal for the town.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wojcik. We saved $1,110 by going with this company, and we did the extended warranty for $925, and that's huge when you're trying to plan your maintenance budget. That transmission, that catalytic converter doesn't put a big hole in your budget, so that's why I opt to go with the extended warranties. It has been beneficial over the years, so I would like to recommend or request that they go with the low bidder, Imperial, I don't know the company here.
Imperial
Imperial
Dodge.
Municipal Partners in Milford, and we'll order the vehicles.
I'll ask the same question I asked the last time you bought cars. What color are they going to be?
I think I'll go for white.
Okay. I just saw, so I can be aware where they are.
We'll try to keep you off balance.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Well, Mr. President, I move that we authorize the town administrator to accept a bid for 2 police package vehicles as more fully described in agenda item H1 for the purchase of the vehicles from Imperial Dodge and Imperial Municipal Partners, Inc.
For a total price of...
For a total price of $25,300...
No,
I'm sorry.
52.
I'm sorry. For the total price of $52,000, 2 cars, $540, including the extended warranty.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Okay, Town Administrator, DPW Director Stephen Bellucci, request award of a bid of a new Mack truck with plow and sander to Ballard Mack Sales and Service for $198,500.
Another big number, thank you.
My heart stops when I see that number.
I know it, I have a heart attack when I saw it, too. In any case, this would be the sister truck to the one you approved and we received last year. We're really in dire need of this truck because our main fleet can't carry a big storm. And this second truck will be used, again, on the hills in North Tiverton. And that together with our 14-year-old 10-wheeler, when we have a big storm, they're the only 3 trucks that are really going to move this stuff. That's been evidenced by the last large storm we had, and we had to leave 3 of our older trucks out in the road and couldn't even use them. So it's $6,000 more than last year for the exact same truck. It was an open bid. There was only one bidder, and it was a Mack bid. And I'm recommending that you support the purchase, simply because it is an emergency. When it comes down to pushing the snow in a big storm, we have to move it. We tried our last big storm to go through emergency management and other agencies with no support. We're out here on our own, way out here in Tiverton, and we need to be able to carry our own load. And this will be a big help to help us along the way.
And this is a 5-year payment plan?
5-year payment plan, yes.
And budgeted 43,182 per year.
I believe that's enough. That's something our treasurer put together in the financing package. So it will cover, yes, it will cover the payments for 5 years, or the first one for 5 years.
Steve?
When will we get
Sorry.
this vehicle?
We probably won't have it for this next winter, the way it's, our bidding process and the award after January 1st or later, I mean in July, so it's going to take 9 months, 10 months to get it, so it looks like we'll probably be getting it next spring. And just like we got this truck this spring, it's just a long process. They custom really build it for us. Most of the time isn't getting the truck, it's getting the truck to the subcontractor that puts on all of the equipment. And that's where the backup was last year. The truck was here on time, it just got stalled up in getting fitted out by another subcontractor of theirs, more or less, so.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nope, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask if there was no possible way we could get it sooner, but 270 days is what it is.
Yeah, we'll try.
Yeah, I know.
Put the pressure, I know you can do it, Steve.
We can do it. We can put some pressure on them for sure. But I really can't go till I get your approval, and now I can kind of push it on its way. But, I needed that first before I could really put the hammer down. So, okay.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we authorize, we award the bid for a new Mack truck and plow sander combination to Ballard Mack Sales and Service for the amount of $198,500.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks. Don't go too far, Steve. Town Administrator, DPW Director Stephen Bellucci, requests authorization to advertise for tub grinding services. And I'm going to play Mickey the Dunce. What in God's name is tub?
Well, that's if you've been up to landfill, we have a pile as big as this building of yard waste and brush that all the residents
about
bring
that.
there and drop off free. And under our DEM license, we have to get rid of that pile somehow every year. And I wait till they more or less let us know, and they have let us know, and it's time. And this tub grinder is 10 feet wide, and it can take huge stumps, 4 feet in diameter, and it grinds everything up. Costs us around $330 an hour, and so it's an expensive proposition. It's getting more expensive because the piles are getting bigger and bigger, and before, people used to throw them in the rubbish, the yard waste, and we'd dump them in the landfill. Now, we've gone to pay-as-you-throw. It's really increased the landfill yard waste side, and I'd say $7,000 to $10,000 every time we bring them here, depending on the size of the pile, so that's...
And you have it in your budget?
We have it in the landfill budget, nothing specifically for this, but it's in the landfill budget, so we do have the funds for it, yes.
Okay. Anything from the council? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we authorize DPW Director Stephen Bellucci to advertise for bids on the tub grinding services.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much.
The Town Administrator, items and announcements.
Couple of quick announcements, Mr. President. I want to join all the voices that thank the entire committee that put on Celebrate Tiverton for a very good time, outstanding attention to detail and great work. On behalf of the town, I want to thank those town employees who did so much work, starting with Director Bellucci, his entire department, our maintenance staff, especially Manny and Larry, who worked very hard to prepare the beach, and then all the DPW guys who went down there, cut all the weeds down, moved the trash barrels around, and made it a welcoming environment for everyone in the town. Same thing for the rest of the weekend. I want to give a big shout out to the Tiverton Little League, who did a very fine job of hosting the Pesky Peckham tournament down at Town Farm and cleaning up every last piece of trash every single night, piling it up, taking care of it, hauling it off, getting it out of the way, and showing the town at its best light. quite frankly, it was a very well-run tournament on beautiful fields and advertises the town to the 16 different communities that participated, including my own hometown. Since we're talking trucks, I just wanted everybody to realize that there was in the budget an item for $12,500 for a maintenance truck. The past maintenance foreman leaving the employment of the town, we did not have a vehicle to make the trash runs and to get supplies to different small job sites around our facilities. With the attentive assistance of the police chief and the director of DPW, for many months now, they've been looking around, trying to find a good deal for the town. And the police chief found us a utility vehicle, a pickup truck for $4,000 that absolutely fit the bill. So it has toolboxes that lock, it has ladder racks, it has a hitch that fits the trailer that we use for trash, and in my personal opinion, one very important factor is it's all set up for a generator. So the guys can go down to a park site with their power tools. If there's no power available, specifically where they're working, they turn the generator on, they do their work. The generator's not part of the deal, it's going to be, but with $4,000 taken out of the 12.5, we're going to move immediately to get a generator, and we'll still come in under budget. It's an older vehicle, but it is not going to be driving to Florida. It's driving around the town of Tiverton and getting the work done. In my personal opinion, we have an immediate need. So following state purchasing regulations, I made a number of findings with the assistance of the town solicitor for a sole source purchase on a unique item, and that was put as part of the file. It's a public record if anybody wants to inspect it. But the truck, we took title Friday. We should be getting delivery in the next couple of days after we've insured and registered the vehicle. So you will see our town maintenance workers in a white pickup truck around town getting the work done. Yes. All right. And that's one other thing, just to give everyone a sense of what the day-to-day workload will look like for the next several weeks. I've alluded several times to the fact that we've deepened our relationship with Paychex on the human resources side to get documentation and do all of the work. The audit of all of our personnel files will begin this Thursday to make sure we have all the necessary paperwork for all of our employees in place. This will be a very intense period of work for all of our department heads as well as the town administrator and Mary Lou Sullivan, my assistant. So you will see great big piles of file jackets, and we may end up needing another file cabinet, but we're going to do this the right way with professional assistance and protect the town from the liability that's caused by not dotting your i's and crossing your t's on personnel. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wojcik. Council announcements, comments, and questions. Councilor DiMederos.
I asked Nancy to distribute, it's labeled August 2014 6-month performance evaluation town administrator. This is the same tool that we've used in the past. As you know, Matt's 6-month period ends somewhere in the week of August 22nd, 25th. So I thought if we could get this into Nancy by August 12th, and as in the past, she'll compile all the results and maybe put the evaluation on either for the August 25th meeting or the September meeting, the first September meeting, whatever fits. Is that all right with everyone, or does anyone have any suggestions?
I don't have an issue with that. I just would, I want it to be a date certain, though, for a meeting.
Well, if we all get it to Nancy by August 12th, how long will you need, Nancy, to compile? Not much. Like you did last time.
Okay. And then our next meeting would be?
The 25th.
25th?
Yep. Right, the 12th is the meeting, and that's why I thought we could get it to you.
That should be the 25th. Okay. So you,
amend the form or anything.
If you would send it electronically, that would be helpful in Word format.
yes.
And some of these things don't
And Matt
apply.
does have the right to choose open or closed session, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We got the same notice as we give everyone else.
Everybody else. And that's all.
Okay.
I
was going to say?
I have an announcement. The Arts Council is in need of 2 volunteers It is helpful to have a background in the arts, but it's not necessary. Anyone with an interest in the art program or the displays at the town hall is much needed and welcome to join the council. The Personnel Board is also looking to fill a vacancy. Anyone interested should contact the town clerk's office and to fill out an application for an appointment request form. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Nancy, do you want to maybe put a list together for our next meeting of the rest of the vacancies? I just thought of one, but I want to, it probably might not be a bad idea to put that out at a meeting. Thanks.
And I just want to reiterate what's already been said about Celebrate Tiverton this past weekend. I went to as many of the events I could make, and I'll tell you, I was just absolutely astounded on how well they were put together, how well they were attended, the public reaction, just when you saw the people on the street, the pride that came out of this entire event. I think this is only the beginning. I'm sure this is something that will continue on for many, many years and will become a fixture in this town. And it really is good to see because it lets people from outside our town know what a beautiful place we live in. And I'll tell you, I mean, I marched and, did my royal wave, but just seeing the people, their pride in just seeing, our high school band marching, the floats, the cars, the veterans that we had, it was just amazing to see. And the people were just ecstatic, and that's the only word I can think of, because they were just so proud to see that as many people turned out and as many people were involved in it to show that it's a town for everyone and not just a select few. And I'll tell you, I was just pleased as punch. I thought it was super. Thank you.
I'll second that. I think I haven't seen as many Tivertonians smiling all at the same time in great numbers as in a long time, and it was really neat. The parade it's a stark contrast to other parades that we've marched in. It was just, everybody was having a good time, everybody was smiling, the bonfire was great. I said to a few people that I'm always amazed, myself included, the number of people who just love to stare at a gigantic fire. and it's something about it, it draws you in. But I think everybody had a great time, and it's a breath of fresh air to see that.
Thank you. Anything else from council? Okay, town solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. K1 is to update you on what's going on with the Secundit River Bridge tolls case. And I know the first reaction is, what, something's going on? Thought it was over. And although we were successful, and thanks to our legislators, providing an alternative source of funding which eliminated the tolls, the fact of the matter is that's not a permanent source of funding. It was a decision of the General Assembly. They could change their mind next year. They could change their mind 5 years from now. And unfortunately, the position of the Rhode Island DOT and the Federal Highway Administration seems to be still that they could legally institute the tolls, which I think is going to get harder and harder as long as it goes. But so we're looking to provide some finality on this. And the town of Portsmouth has taken an even more aggressive position. What you have here, I provided previously, they had filed for basically disgorgement, that the Federal Highway Administration should turn back, the DOT turn back the tolls that were collected via the Turnpike and Bridge Authority. And there was also a request for certain discovery information, including an answer from the defendants about whether they did agree that, once this was over, they couldn't put a toll in the future, and also how much they had collected. The defendants moved for what's called a protective order in federal court, that they not have to answer those discovery, and that's what there is in K1B, their emergency motion for protective order. We were in court this past Friday morning in federal court before Magistrate Judge Sullivan, and she ruled in favor of the defendants on their request for a protective order on the discovery, saying that the state and Federal Highway Administration, they didn't have to answer the questions at this time. The defendants have also filed a motion to dismiss the whole action as being moot, which is K1C. We're preparing a response to that, which obviously is going to be, it's not moot unless we actually get an order that says, yeah, the tolls are dead. It's not moot. And then finally, because of the renewed presence and whatnot, the town of Portsmouth has been basically going it alone as the named plaintiff. Bristol and Tiverton both filed motions to intervene. The judge held those in abeyance. Then he scheduled a hearing for them. Then he canceled the hearing, and it's never been decided on. So we have moved now for a hearing on our motion to intervene. We would like to be at the table. We, in general, are trying to keep the legal fees lighter because it's split between the two towns, but we want to at least be parties to the case if we're going to get some final resolution for it.
Any questions from the council?
And just, by the way, it'll probably be September before anything further happens on that, before any further hearings are held.
Okay.
So, K2, Town of Tiverton versus James and Melissa Pelletier, Tiger Tree. Just to provide you a status update, this was supposed to be scheduled for a sentencing hearing on last Thursday. There was a request by the defendant. One of the defendants was hospitalized. Mrs. Pelletier apparently was not available. We actually objected to the continuance because she had not participated in any of the trial. Nevertheless, continuance was granted. It is now scheduled for August 14th. I'm not sure yet whether it's going to be 9:30 in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but the date is now August 14th. And interestingly enough, it was, scheduled to be heard last Thursday. Today in the mail arrived a supplemental memo from the defendants on the sentencing. So the paperwork is still flying.
Is that all, Mr. Tights?
That's all I have, except I did want to introduce to the council as a whole and to the public, this is Jeremy Ricks, who's going to be a third-year law student at Roger Williams Law School. He's an intern in our office, and he's actually been working on several of the Tiverton matters, and so I wanted to give him a taste of what it's like here in the trenches. Unfortunately, it's too early. He's not going to get a realistic taste of it.
You got off easy. Welcome again. Thank you for coming. Hey, Madam Clerk.
I just have one item with the Tiverton Celebrates. Since the council all seems to be unanimous that they are appreciative of it, I thought I might send off a little letter on behalf of the council to express the appreciation of the council for all the work and the effort.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Foxwoods. Is that it?
I'm sorry, that's it.
Okay. Okay. I will entertain a motion, Mr. Lambert.
I move that we go into closed executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42465A2, potential litigation, and 42465A4, investigation, Ray Fire Department.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And stay in closed executive session pursuant to Section 42465A2, Ray Collective Bargaining, AFSCME.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
And stay in closed executive session pursuant to Section 42465A2, Ray Litigation, Site Ready LAL Construction, Inc. et al.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
And stay in closed executive session pursuant to Section 42465A2, potential litigation, Ray Pension Reform.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Motion
And
carries.
stay in closed executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42465A2, Ray Quarterly Litigation Report.